Hi, everybody. Welcome to our new episode. We're going to be talking about age and time and all the things that go with that and things like that. Hi, Betty. How are you today?
I'm doing fine.
Excellent. So let's talk about this. What are we going to explore around, give me a little preview here on age we were talking about overcoming age. And I would say dealing with aging. But how do you want to set this up?
Well, number one, when you're talking about age, you're talking about a human language program. You're talking about concerns in the seen, heard, and felt realm.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about being. You're talking about your point of view on what you see.
Right.
So overcoming age is sort of an expression.
Mm-hmm.
Like we overcome it when we're 2. We overcome it when we graduate from high school. We overcome it when we graduate from college. We overcome it when we take a new job, because you're exploring something new. And anytime you're engaged in exploring something that you've never explored before, that's totally strange and interesting to you,
Right.
you're overcoming age. You're involved, you're engaged with being. And that makes a difference.
Okay.
So the thing we're going to talk about.
All right. Okay, very good. So let's start out with our first quote from Christian Science Re-Explored by Margaret Laird. She says, overcoming age is not renewing our youth, but is thought going into new channels which history has not yet recorded.
Yeah. And in that same page where I got the quote, she was quoting Oscar Wilde, who said, history is really gossip.
Right.
And I enjoyed that, because actually history is somebody's point of view on events that they looked at.
Right.
So it has a lot of them in it.
Right.
Right. So anyway, you want to realize that age and agelessness and all of the stuff acquainted with age or related to age is something that is a judgment, something that is a shot called by observation of what you see around you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have deterioration and lack of usefulness and inability to perform on cars, on people, on gardens, on houses, you name it. And there is a lot related to this belief about age.
Mm-hmm. Scoot a little bit to your right.
To my right. So for this way.
Right.
Okay.
Very good. All right. So let's go to the next quote and see what we got here. Also, Christian Science Re-Explored, page 106. Human history may record you as beginning and ending, but these are concepts and not facts.
Yeah. Well, metaphysical science, for one thing, says that life is eternal. So that which they're talking about is certainly not the two-legged thing that you see in the mirror. They're talking about the being that you are,
mm-hmm.
being present, calling itself Betty or Kim or Henry or James or John.
Right.
That is a point of view on the being that's present.
Yeah.
And that point of view has a limited capacity to exist. It's just a point of view that's sort of there while you're talking about it, and then it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a couple of ways to address age. I noticed with myself, for instance, that as I got older and older and older in the concept, as Betty gets older and her hair gets white and all that stuff, I did notice that there is a tendency to slow down in your actions. Well, that's always something that you can take on. And it doesn't mean that you have to go to an exercise class and jump up and down and so on to keep active, although that's a possibility. But it does mean that you need to be engaged in something that you may have never explored before, something that wakes up your creative juices, so to speak.
Right.
Something that has you involved, because it's sitting around looking at the human picture, the thing you see in the mirror, and what it does, and why it does it, and when it does it, how it looks, how it feels. That's the stuff of which age is a particle. The being that you are has no age connected to it.
Right. Right. You know, when people are looking at age and they look at, you know, all of the things that I see, some of my friends are dealing with in certain ways around dementia or Alzheimer's or anything like that. What would metaphysical science have to say about age-related sorts of things like that?
Well, it's like talking about an automobile. When it's 20 years old, it begins to have problems. You know, it's the maintenance of the machine that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with that kind of discussion of age, Mrs. Eddy described it as sin, disease, and death. That's what goes with the belief system.
Mm-hmm.
That's what seems to be challenging. What I've noticed is that you don't have to have those things limit you. Just like when you get to be 5 or 6, you no longer want a tricycle. You've outgrown that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you go along, there are all kinds of things that you outgrow, and you move into other areas of engagement, other areas of interest,
Mm-hmm.
other productive ways to be, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And as you do that with, I would call it a willingness to inquire, to explore, to venture,
Mm-hmm.
age is not a problem.
Right.
It's a belief system about human living. And it does not have to give you a problem unless you identify yourself totally with the belief system that you see in the mirror.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I could
When
get
you're
that.
willing to see that there is something going on called you, called Betty, called Kim, whatever, that there's something going on that isn't seen, heard, and felt. There's something going on that has you be, and it's unique, and there's no duplicate anywhere, and it's powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always present. But it requires acknowledgement. It requires you to say, "Oh yeah, that's what's going on," because most of the time we're busy acknowledging the Betty or the Kim.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be acknowledging that there's a being present.
Right.
It has no limitation. And to the in proportion or in the measurement that you're able to live yourself as being present, you don't have the stuff either that limits you.
Right.
So you have an out, so to speak. You have a way to live yourself productively and healthily and without problems.
Mm-hmm.
If you can be yourself rather than the point of view image that you see in the mirror.
Right. Okay. Very good. So, on Christian Science Re-Explored again, Margaret Laird says, overcoming age has nothing to do with either youth or age.
Yep, it doesn't. It doesn't have to do. Overcoming age, for one thing, is an expression. But it means being a victim of the picture of yourself is something you don't have to be bothered with if you are being yourself. Mm-hmm. Capital S self. Divine, whole, perfect, complete. The reflection of the God idea. That self is what absolutely enables you to show up, if I can say it that way, calling yourself Betty.
Right.
It gives you the language you have to work with.
Right.
But it limits you when you believe that language is all there is.
Yeah.
or if you believe that the language is reality rather than just language.
Right. Because then you're trapped.
Yeah.
You're trapped in that view, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. On 172.9 in Christian Science Re-Explored, Margaret Laird says the non-conceptual thinking that is mind, which is I being self-conscious, is neither young nor old. It's almost the same thing we just said, right?
Yep.
Overcoming age has nothing to do with either youth or age. So non-conceptual thinking that is mind, which is I being self-conscious, is neither young nor old. Age doesn't live there.
Right.
So
age is totally language related, language oriented.
Right. Yeah. And another quote here, the reality seen as birth, growth, maturity, and decay is the reality that is life eternal. No birth, no growth, no maturity, and no decay. That may look that way, but is not the way it is.
Yeah. Action is a function of the God idea.
Yeah.
So if I think that I'm the two-legged Betty and I want to run around looking and acting young, guess what? I don't, I lose the game right there.
Right.
Because the being of me is the only thing that has no age relationship.
Right.
The thing that runs around doing something with my hair and so on. It doesn't mean that I won't try to look as nice as possible. I'm not saying that because I do. But I also don't kid myself that is going to do anything about this thing called age. What makes a difference with that is the activity that invests all of my inquisitiveness, all of my creativity, that has me perking on all cylinders, so to speak.
Right.
Something that challenges me.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I love about metaphysical science. It challenges me all the time.
Right.
It keeps me on my toes. Everything that comes up, I can relate to. Now let's see what's going on here. There's a value in this human living that I've got going on. What's the value? The value is to keep me on my toes.
Yeah. No matter what comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Sandy Jackson has asked, could you dial down on being yourself?
Yes, being consciously aware that the divine being itself, the God idea in action, constitutes who I am. The Betty that I see in the mirror is the thing that shows up that gives me a way to function, but it is not who I am. It's just Betty.
It's just the shoe on the Monopoly board.
Yeah, it's like a piece on the playing board. It gives me a way to engage in the activity of being in the human sense of things. And the being that I am is what has my language unique to me and your language unique to you. There is no other out there for each individual. Each one, Mrs. Eddy said the scientist is alone with his own being and the reality of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I look around and I think there are other people out there. But when I look at the science that I'm studying, I think, well, that is really my best way of identifying infinity. Mm-hmm. And infinity constitutes my being. So I'll have people around all the time, people, places, and things. It's all my current language of infinity.
Right.
I call it many or lots or bunches or groups.
Right.
There's only one thing going on. One mind fully functioning constitutes the world I walk through.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Okay. Now, on page 171 in CSR, Margaret Laird writes, in the being of myself as reflection, I am no longer I, but mind. This means I have no age to contend with, no deterioration or lack.
Yep.
So,
and you have to look at, we just pull these quotes out of her book and out of context, but she talks about I, and we use I to identify Betty. And she says, then I'm no longer I. You see, when I'm living the science of myself, the being me, when I'm acknowledging that consciously, then I don't have the Betty around that calls herself I. But that is the only real I there is. So yeah, I left I, but I am I.
Right. Right. And in that world, in the consciousness, in the God idea, there is no age, there is no deterioration, and there is no lack.
That's right. But all of those things show up in the language world.
Yeah.
And you just leave it alone. You don't get into a struggle with it.
That's where willingness comes in.
Yeah. I can't emphasize it enough. You don't say, oh dear, oh dear. I also hear lots of my friends, by the way, saying, well, what do they expect at my age? Well, that nails you right there. Because what do you expect? And who are you being that has an expectation of your human living? Do you know? We are our own best friend and worst enemy, because it's as we say.
Right.
You know, we don't live the world as it is. We live it as we are.
Mm-hmm.
We live our world as we are. It's my world I walk through.
Right.
And you don't have any idea what my world is all about.
Right.
Because you're in your world, you know.
Right.
You have a whole different Betty in your world than I have in mine.
I'm sure.
And I have a whole different Kim in my world than you have in yours.
Correct.
So when we go.
Yeah, I can get that. It's a self-living. It's a reflection of mind.
Individual being.
Yeah.
Infinite individuality.
Yes. Okay. So in your book, Mind is the Athlete, you wrote, awareness identifies consciousness, an infinite, eternal presence.
Yep. So awareness, meaning conscious awareness, meaning acknowledgement is the word that comes to me quickly. The acknowledgement of who I am. Am I Betty with all that confronts Betty? Or am I being and living that with some freedom called Betty to be, do, and have whatever there is to do, be, do, and have without concern, without problems, without oh dear, without all of that goes with if I believed that picture called Betty is who I am.
Yeah.
I live it differently when I understand that that's just a point of view, a language thing that I can work with, but it is not who I am. And who I am has that show up. So when I'm present to who I am, that thing that shows up is healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Yeah. Okay. In Mind is the Athlete, you also go on to say, when the human sense of existence is silent, a new creating occurs, a new generation of language and expression. Of language and expresses it.
Yeah. A new creating occurs, a new generation of language and expresses it, the human sense of existence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I make the world I walk through every minute. Yeah. All the time. And the effort to fix, mend, repair, change, alter, redo, whatever, the language world is an effort without too much reward.
Right.
Because fixing your attention on the language blinds you to the reality that you are. When I'm trying to work with the language as if it needed something, as if it weren't okay, as if it was going to help me
Right.
or hurt me or do anything for me. I'm really blind to the fact that it's just language. It can't do anything.
Right.
It's number one, it's already over when the language shows up. So it's the past, and it can't help me now at
Right.
all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So to help myself, I have to be consciously present to who I am.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Very good. And I just wanted to remind people that we are sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science. And you can go to our website at scientificmetaphysics.org, where there's all the books that we quote, as well as other activities and things that you might be interested in participating in. If you have any questions, just like Sandy earlier with a comment, feel free to type those in. And if you're enjoying this conversation, please like the thumbs up or the heart and let us know. And then also, if you are loving this conversation, it's making a difference for you, feel free to go out to our website and make a donation, because that would also be helpful. We are a nonprofit organization. Okay, so in Mind is the Athlete, this is what we just covered, right? So now we're going to go to Science and Health. And Science and by Mary Baker Eddy, Science and Health. Mm-hmm. Where she said, life is eternal. Let us then shape our views of existence into loveliness, freshness, and continuity rather than into age and blight.
Yep. So that's what we started out with. The whole idea is to recognize that life, which in metaphysical science is synonymous with the God idea, talking about a human appearance of a life that doesn't last very long.
Yeah.
We're talking about energy, the energy of spirit. We're talking about activity. We're talking about movement. We're talking about repetitive, if I can use that word, generation of being. Yeah. It's a self-generating, ongoing, all-encompassing presencing that constitutes being. So life is eternal. That means it never started, it never ended. There's no beginning, there's no end. It is the action quality, the vitality, the energy that is present. Being you every second, being me every second, whether I acknowledge it or not. The only advantage I have acknowledging it is that it takes it makes a difference in my language being, my language that shows up, identifying that I'm here.
Right.
It removes me from the victim stage of believing that the language runs the show, when I'm consciously present to what does run the show.
Right. So we have a question. So I'm going to put it up here now. Did Mary Baker Eddy and Margaret Laird know one another? And who did they learn from? Who were their teachers?
Mary Baker Eddy wrote Science and Health and lived back in the 1800s. Margaret Laird was much more current. She just died, 50 years ago or something. They did not know each other. Margaret Laird visited in Mrs. Eddy's home, but Mrs. Eddy had died just the year before. So no, they did not know each other. Mary Baker Eddy left a structure of teachers and a metaphysical college that trained teachers and practitioners. So that's where they studied, and that's who they studied under, were Mrs. Eddy's instructions and her guidance written in the textbook of Christian Science. Right. And Margaret Laird was a student.
And she studied with Bicknell Young, right?
Bicknell Young, yes. And Mrs. Eddy had some key students that led on the teaching, starting with Edward Kimball, and his ace pupil, I would say, would be Bicknell Young, and Bicknell Young's ace pupil was Margaret Laird.
Okay. Very good. That's great background. I know that other people had that question as well, I'm imagining. So very good question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, neither age nor accident can interfere with the senses of soul, and there are no other real senses.
That's right. So really and truly, if you get the perception that every sense, sight, hearing, tasting, touching, all of that is actually identifying the soul qualities constituting your being.
Mm-hmm.
When you see that clearly, you can take care of threats to your hearing, your seeing, touching, tasting, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So it is all, again, it's relating back to the being that has you occur as Betty or Kim, rather than looking to rushing around in the Betty language world, thinking something here ought to help me out.
Yeah.
You know, I will generate the language of help to myself, but it comes from being myself,
Mm-hmm.
not trying to juggle the language.
Yeah.
And it may look like language, you know, I have no way to know how it's going to look, but I know that the source of any help to any living creature is divine. It's not in the picture. It's not the human picture look.
Because there's no cause in the picture.
That's right. It has no capacity to help. Would love to do it, but it doesn't have the capacity.
Right. Okay. Now, in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy also wrote, decrepitude is not according to law, nor is it a necessity of nature, but an illusion.
Yep. Again, that's looking at something that is threatening to the human experience of the language picture, so to speak, but it doesn't have to limit you if you know who you are.
Yeah.
Being has no decrepitude at all.
Right.
When I can see that that's my source, it drops away.
Yeah.
It does not limit me.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay. And also, Mary Baker Eddy said in Science and Health, the measurement of life by solar years robs youth and gives ugliness to age.
Yep.
So we shouldn't have birthdays.
Good luck with that one. It is the dwelling on that idea that gets you in trouble.
Yeah, I think it gets at the belief. It gets at the belief of what age means. Like, oh my God, I'm 60, or oh my God, I'm 90, or whatever. It's like there's a certain listening of that. That's like, okay, let me help you to your car. You're still driving, all that kind of stuff, right? That's all that belief system.
Yep.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's that one. Okay. And then our final quote for tonight from Science and Health, man governed by immortal mind is always beautiful and grand. Each succeeding year unfolds wisdom, beauty, and holiness. And anything you want to say about that?
No, that kind of sums it up.
Yeah.
If anybody has a question, I'll be glad to address it. But I think I've covered the ideas that were.
Yeah. And Asar, I hope I got your name right, says, here for the first time learning. Thank you. So you're very, very welcome. And thank you for being here.
Yes.
And so that's it for today. We'll be back again next Wednesday at 7.
There's another thing I wanted to mention.
Okay. What are we mentioning?
I'm excited because my book is now out as an audiobook.
That's correct. So,
on
Mind is the Athlete is now available on Audible. For those of you who have Audible accounts, Mind is the Athlete. You can look it up. Mind is the Athlete by Betty Albee, available on Audible. So you can go out there. I added it to my Audible account. I was very excited, and so I've got it now. So
it says in my email stuff that it's also available on Amazon and with what is it, iTunes, Apple.
Yeah, I don't know, but okay. Yeah, so but it's out there on Audible. That's been a long time coming as a project of ours, so that's kind of fun. So if that works for you and you want to listen to the book rather than read the book, you can definitely do that. And Betty is the narrator. We were in fact, I have a picture. I wish I had it ready because I would have, of her actually in the audio booth, in the sound stage, reading that book, through all the glass and the sound, things and all that. But she did that, and that took a couple days to get that read. It was very fun. So, okay. So we will be here again next week, next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific on both YouTube and Facebook. And we look forward to having your participation. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out. And again, we're sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science. You can go to our website at scientificmetaphysics.org is our website, and you can see the different activities and the different materials and things like that you can participate in. So again, thank you again for being here, and we will see you next week.